Hello, I'm Lisbeth, and today we're going to be going over naming acids. So first, let's talk about what kinds of acids exist. So we have one kind of acid called a monoprotic acid. So if you know what mono just means one. So this is going to be hydrogen plus one other element. We also have polyprotic acids. Poly means many, so that's going to be hydrogen and more than one other element. Let's not call them things, right? So there are general rules for naming the different kinds of acids. For monoprotic acids, you're always going to use the prefix hydro. And then you're also going to use the root of the element that is not hydrogen. And if you think about it logically, it makes sense because we're already considering the hydrogen when we use hydro. So now we're going to use the root to express what the other element is. And at the very end, you're going to use the suffix -ic to end it. And then you just write acid at the end to make sure that people know that it's an acid. So let's do an example. So this is HCl. Here we have our hydrogen, and here we have our chlorine. Notice that chlorine is the only other element besides hydrogen. So that means it's going to be a monoprotic acid. So the first thing I'm going to do is write down our prefix hydro. The root for chlorine is chlor. And then I'm going to write -ic and end it with acid. Not too difficult, right? So here you can see our rules come into play. We have our prefix hydro right here. And then our root is chlor, and then we have -ic. And then we added acid. So that's how you name a monoprotic acid. Let's do another example really quickly. This one you might look at and think it might not be monoprotic because there are two hydrogens and a sulfur. However, there are still only hydrogen and sulfur. There's only one other thing other than hydrogen, so this is still considered a monoprotic acid. So we're going to follow the same naming rules. So we're going to have hydro. The root for sulfur is sulfur. Wow, right? That one's crazy. That says sulfur, I promise. And then -ic, and then just acid. So the name for this one would be hydrosulfuric acid. That's how you name monoprotic acids. Now let's talk about how we're going to name polyprotic acids. So here, polyprotic acids usually have to do with our polyatomics. So polyatomics are things that you have to memorize in order to be able to understand their names and their charges and how they interact with other things. So the first thing we have to consider is if our polyatomic ends in -ate or an -ite. So if our polyatomic ends in -ate, then we're going to have the suffix -ic. I remember this because if you ate something icky, so that's how I always remember that those are related to each other. If it ends in -ite, your new suffix is going to be -us. Unfortunately, I don't have a cute story for that one yet, but maybe one day I will. So you're going to change the -ate to an -ic, the -ite to an -us, and then you're going to add acid. So how does that look like? Let's do an example. So here, when you look at this molecule, you're going to notice that there's hydrogen, which is usually what indicates that it's an acid in the first place. And then we have our sulfate right here. Notice I said sulfate. This is the major key right here. So if it ends in -ate, we're going to change that to an -ic. So now I'm going to have sulfuric acid. It seems very similar to the hydrosulfuric acid because this was just sulfuric acid, but here we have this oxygen, and that's what changes the name to not have hydro in front of it. Let's do another example. So here, knowing your polyatomics, you would know that this is nitrite. And it ends in ite. So when we look up here, we know that ite is going to change to us. So this would be nitrous acid. And that's how you name your polyprotic acids. So just to recap, for your monoprotic acids, you're always going to have your prefix hydro, you're going to have the root of the non-hydrogen element, and you're going to have the suffix ic, and your end in acid. For the polyprotic acids, you're going to make sure you know your polyatomic, whether it ends in ate or ite. If it ends in ate, you ate something icky, you're going to change it to ic. If it ends in ite, you're going to change it to us, and then add acid. And that is how you name the different kinds of acids.